This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Hey guys, Jay here. Welcome to Models Memories Weekly, episode 208. Models Memories is a show about nothing and is filmed in front of a live studio audience. This is a show where we talk about painting, modeling, and wargaming experiences from the week. Now you might be thinking to yourself, Jay, you put out 3 videos a week. Ow! Could I possibly have more to say? Well, I do, and here goes. This week, Games Workshop hit us with a whole bunch of brand new rules, some in the new balanced data slate for Warhammer 40,000, and some in some brand new detachments, and we got a brand spanking new Space Marine, but not for Warhammer 40,000 or 30K or something that would make sense. But first, have you ever needed a website to call your very own, but you're not sure how to fill out all 4 corners of your website? Well, today's sponsor, Squarespace, can help with that. Squarespace allows anyone to design the website of their dreams with the most powerful and easiest design tools in the industry, like Design Blueprint. Using AI technology empowers anyone to build a more personalized website tailored to their needs, crafting a bespoke digital identity. Choose from a professionally curated selection of styling options to build a unique online presence from the ground up. Squarespace makes sure it's easy to launch your website and get discovered fast with integrated optimized SEO tools so you show up more often to more people and grow the way you want. With Squarespace, it's never been easier to set up a unique online storefront. Whether your services are physical, digital, or service-based, selling your wares has never been easier. Squarespace offers unmatched ability to showcase your unique wares with images, video, reviews, add-ons, all capped off with their seamless checkout tools, letting your customers use whatever system they prefer, whether Klarna, ACH Direct Deposit, Apple Pay, Afterpay, or ClearPay. Squarespace offers a free trial for you to dip your feet into and test the waters, and ready to dive in head first, you can go to squarespace.com/EonsOfBattle or follow the link in the description to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. The most exciting thing to happen in the world of Warhammer 40,000 this week is the new balanced data slate. I haven't been able to go through every single change, but the first thing that absolutely jumped out to me is the Imperial Guard got nerfed. Sean's army got nerfed just a little bit. One of the changes I think is very, very fair, and one of them is a little bit rough. The new Bridgehead Strike Force, their Grotsman's detachment, is really, really, really good, like maybe a little bit oppressively good. And so the best stratagem in that detachment, the one that gives all of your las weapons +1 to hit and +1 AP on the turn that it arrives, either via Deep Strike or Rapid Ingress, or if you hop out of a transport, it gives all of those +1 hit, +1 AP. Really, really good. You'd want to pop that every single turn. That is now a 2 CP stratagem. 2 CP stratagems are really, really rough. Generally, you don't ever do a 2 CP stratagem unless you have a way, like an Archon or a Space Marine Captain, like a way to make it a little bit cheaper so you can get that 2 CP down to a 1 CP stratagem. Or it's just so unbelievably good that you absolutely have to pop it. Imperial Guard have access to one of these where you can bring one of your units back from the dead as soon as it dies, and it's an infantry unit, and for some reason Scout Sentinels are infantry units, and you can bring them, I believe, in squadrons of 3, so you can get 3 Scout Sentinels back from the dead for free for 2 CPs. So sometimes you just absolutely have to do that. But in general, 2 CP is the hardest nerf a stratagem can ever receive. And so, yeah, making your las guns a little bit better is now 2 CP. I don't think the detachment is already so good. I don't think that that's going to be a huge deal, but it is a pretty big nerf. The other nerf I think is a little bit funny. The new Grenadiers for the Death Corps of Krieg, they had their little remote control bomb guy. And originally it could shoot off anything within 12 inches and explode, dealing D3 damage or 2D3 damage if it was against a vehicle. Very, very good. Now it is anything within 9 inches and within line of sight. I think that is super fair. A lot of the other units in the game that have kind of a suitcase nuke style weapon, they have to be really, really close to throw it. Space Marines, they have to throw their suitcase nuke 3 inches. They have to be well within the blast zone to throw it. So I think it's very fair that the Guard have to get just a little bit closer to my stuff before they can just blow it up with mortal wounds. It was really fun to tell Sean that the Imperial Guard got nerfed again and see the joy leave his eyes. Just a little highlight of my week. But speaking of brand spanking new Space Marines, Necromunda may or may not have gotten a new Space Marine miniature. The mighty warrior known as Vandoth the Fallen has haunted the fireside tales of gangers for centuries and now emerges to terrorize your tabletop with a new resin miniature. This flavor text goes on to describe him as like a super sneaky guy, and for some reason he's just really, really big and really, really strong and really, really bloodthirsty, and he's very clearly a space marine. Like on the miniature, he's big with bulging muscles with all of the little plugs all over him that are for interfering with the black carapace of space marines. Like this guy just is a space marine. There's no way he's not. He's carrying a bolter. I mean, yes, bolters are guns that are somewhat available to gangers from Necromunda, but this guy is such a space marine. He's like a cannibal. You know who are cannibals? Space marines. It's a very rarely brought up little bit of Space Marine lore where they can eat the brains of their fallen victims and they can gain a little bit of their knowledge and like kind of a little bit of understanding. They get their memories somehow by eating brains. Blood Angels, I don't remember if they get a little something from drinking the blood of their enemies or if that's just how they do. But yeah, Space Marines are cannibals. Space Marines are bad. Often, that's something that's often forgotten about in the lore because a lot of the lore is told from the Space Marines perspective where it's all about honor and duty. And so you forget that Space Marines are just the absolute worst most of the time. But yeah, this guy is 100% a Space Marine. He would make the best Night Lord. This would make such a good Night Lord, especially if you're going more the Night Lord's trilogy, where their forces are very, very ramshackle and like barely hanging in there. Slap a couple of Space Marine shoulder pads on this sucker, maybe lose the backpack in favor of a power plant. His backpack with the bedroll on top kind of is the silhouette of a Space Marine power plant. This guy just is a Space Marine. I also really like his little masky goggle thing that's just like a chunk of metal with holes drilled so that he can sort of see through it. It's a really, really nice model. Also, the paint job is really nice. I love that they used jade on his little vials of blood. I'm gonna have to steal that when I'm painting some vials because they're really hard to paint and it's hard to make them look glassy and reflective, but that jade color is a really, really smart idea. But yeah, new Space Marine for Necromunda. I can't wait to get some new Space Marines for 40K. Games Workshop teased not that long ago something that looked awfully Salamander-y and Gravisy, and so I'm really excited to know what on earth is coming for the Space Marines. If I know Games Workshop, what's coming for the Space Marines is probably no more Centurion warsuits, and instead they're gonna get like another version of, what do they call it? The Gravis, the big chunky egg-shaped Gravis guys, aggressors. I don't like aggressors, but aggressors are like the new Centurion warsuit in a way. But speaking of new things, new detachments for the factions of Warhammer 40,000. My favorite thing in 10th edition is detachments, and that we've been getting them for free. It's so good, it's so much fun to play the game. And even if you're playing against the same army over and over and over, you get to experience all of these different detachments and how they change the interactions of the miniatures and the rules in the game. It's really, really good. Adorably, in the article, it really promotes that if you bought a codex, then the new detachment is gonna show up in your app. And so it was great that you purchased that codex because it matters. The detachments are free, you still don't need a codex. And it's also, you purchase a codex and it comes with the digital codex, or it doesn't come with the digital codex, it comes with access to the codex rules in the app. It's not I don't think it's as shared a product as Games Workshop thinks it is. I know a lot of codex people, they never touch the code, or if they do, they just throw the code up on Facebook and say, I bought the codex, don't care about the app. So first person who plugs it into the app gets a free codex or gets free codex rules. A lot of people don't, a lot of people who are into the physical only want the physical, and then a lot of people who are into the digital don't want the physical at all. I'm probably in the don't want the physical camp. I've got a giant bookshelf of every codex Games Workshop has ever made. And the new ones, you don't need to get the new ones. There's literally, in every new codex, there's been like one paragraph of new lore. And usually it's just a little short story. It's not anything groundbreaking. Pretty much the codex lore has remained pretty much exactly the same since the 5th edition codexes. I would say if you wanted to purchase codexes just as reading material, The 8th edition codexes are pretty good. I feel like those have the highest amount of artwork because in 7th edition, they did a really bad job of using miniature photography instead of artwork. 8th edition codexes, they went back to the artwork. So if you want like some codexes for posterity, I would say the 8th edition ones are the one to look for. And if not the 8th edition, then the 5th edition. And obviously only buy them if you can get them at a really nice price, not a Games Workshop price. But speaking of Games Workshop, the new detachments are pretty darn fun. We got one for the Custodes, one for the Tau, and one for the Orks. I don't know a heck of a lot about Tau and Custodes. I play Tau, but I play Kroot Tau, and so I only know about the Kroot stuff. But the Tau detachment, it adds 6 inches to ranged weapons, which is very, very good and very, very fluffy for the Tau. The Tau love their guns. The Tau love castling up and being just a giant shooting wall. So that's fine. Adding 6 inches to range is a little bit of a whatever. 40k is a shooting game on very, very small boards. So you're almost always within range or within easy range of whatever you want to be shooting at. There's definitely something to be said for adding 6 inches because that interacts with rules like rapid fire, so that can be pretty darn good, but I hope that the Tau detachment is fun and fluffy and not too oppressive, because really good shooting can very easily become really, really oppressive in the game, especially against armies like Black Templars who really want to charge up and get in the faces of our enemies so that we can take them on in glorious hand-to-hand combat. I don't want to get shot in the face by a railgun from, I guess instead of 48, or it might be 72 inch range for a railgun. So I guess it's gonna be 78 inch range for a railgun. Then we got a detachment all about the Custodes. This one is a little bit interesting. When I read the rules for 10th edition and Custodes, I softened on my excitement for Custodes a little bit because the thing that's interesting to me about the Custodes is I want them to be the golden pillars of humanity. I wanna bring 12 guys and have that be my entire army. And for the most part, Tau are actually, Custodes are pretty much just your average space, or like your average 40k force. You bring, a couple of characters, then you got your troops and your fast attack. There's no such thing as heavy support, but you got your Arulian Terminators who have uppy downy. Like they're a pretty typical 40k force. This detachment, if you have a Custodes unit and they are not within 6 inches of another Custodes unit, you get +1 to hit and +1 to wound. +1 to hit is not super exciting because you already hit on 2s pretty much army-wide. This does get around some rules like stealth, so that's a nice feather in your cap, but really the +1 to wound is where it's at. That is incredibly strong. And it does start to reignite my idea of doing some Custodes hero hammer. Just bring in all of the characters and as many characters as I possibly can, and just seeing if I can make like 12 dudes into a really, really powerful fighting force. I feel like this would also be really good for, what's he called? Like important guy on Dawn Eagle Jet Bike, I think is the official name. Having a couple of those guys running around who can very easily be 6 inches away from any of my other Custodes units. That could be really, really fun. And the last attachment, Orks. This one is all about orc guns, and the orc guns have got me a little bit interesting. I really like the Death Mob detachment for orcs. You get to press the red button every time you shoot with a Grot or Luda weapon or mech weapon. And it's really, really fun because you essentially you just get a random power up to your shooting. Usually, I think it's sustained hits. What is it? Sustained hits +1 to attack or something else. The sustained hits one is usually the really, really fun one to hit the red button for, but this one just improves shooting in general. Your guns get sustained hits too, which is a really funny way to make the orcs better at shooting, because orcs only hit on 5s and 6s generally when they shoot their guns, which is very bad. But it also feels very un-orcish to just improve the ballistic skill of orcs. So having it be that you're praying for 6s and then your 6s explode into 3 successful hits is kind of a great way to handle orc shooting. And if you're popping your Wog this turn, then all of your guns get Assault, which is good. Assault isn't the sexiest power up, but it is a very nice thing to have. And if you're running something a little bit more mechy and Gretchen-y and maybe a Morkanaut or Gorkanaut or whichever is the shooty version, then getting a little bit of extra movement and then being able to line up your shots perfectly and then praying for those 6s. I think the Morkanaut, the giant Gatling arm of the Morkanaut is like 20 shots. So 20 shots looking for those 6s to explode, that is a lot of fun. I really like Death Dreads with usually 3 flamethrower arms and 1 Death Claw, but there is something to be said for the 4 Ork custom Mega Blasters or custom Shooters, the plasma gun for the Orks. The tricky thing is it's hazardous, and so it has some problems with the Dreadmob detachment, but having all of those plasma guns in this detachment could be really, really good, because you're still rolling 4 dice for your Gets Hot, and so you're probably gonna fail, but you're probably not gonna explode yourself like you will in Dreadmob. So this detachment might be the one if you wanna run a lot of plasma guns on your Orks. The Death Dread, there's something to Shooty Death Dread, and Shooty Death Dread with exploding 6s is really, really exciting to me. And the Grotzukas on the Killicans. Grotzukas have, they're not flamethrowers, but they do have a random number of shots. So this detachment just looks really, really good. And Ork shooting, it's really hard to make Ork shooting oppressive because they're so bad at it. I really, really want to see how this new detachment interacts with the Ork datasheets, because this one's gonna be wacky. It's for any Ork character, and it lets you give the squad that they're attached to, it lets you give them rapid fire 1 on their guns. Now, essentially, this is an enhancement meant for mechs leading a squad of Lutas. And so Lutas with their def guns with rapid fire 1, and I believe they have a 36-inch range, so you've got a pretty far range for your rapid fire. So you're getting extra shots on top of your Alada shots, and then you have the exploding 6s. That is a beautiful little unit to give to a whole bunch of Lutas. I have to remind myself how embarked within a transport firing at a firing dex interacts with abilities. I'm pretty sure they would have to get out of the battle wagon to be able to use all of these stacking benefits, but it's still, Lutas are looking really, really interesting. I want to play some more Orks. I mean, Orks, I always have to be kind of the hipster player when I'm writing lists for 40K, because obviously boys in trucks, wogging, top 10. It's a perfect thing for Orks. Really, really good, really, really powerful. But then I'm over here like, well, how can I make a squad of Lutas really good? How can I make the Grot tanks good? Or not the Grot tanks, the Grot guns, the tractor cannon, the bubble chuckas. I want bubble chuckas to be really good. They're kind of really good, but not knowing the power of your gun before you shoot it is really, really annoying. But there's something to it. There's something to it. I like the weird and wacky side of 40K, and so I'm really excited to get some more games of Orks in. But you know what I'm even more excited for? That's right, EonsOfBattle.com. EonsOfBattle.com is the place to find our merch, like the Nick and Jay dice. These are Nick dice. In addition to our merch at EonsOfBattle.com, you'll find the best way to support us doing what we do with a membership. Each month, members get 1 credit that they can use on our new monthly terrain packs or any previous pack we have ever made. For the month of March, we are completing our The Fall Battlefield series with Battlefield Support, a set of terrain focused around filling in a war zone with all the infrastructure necessary for a proper battlefield. This set includes gothically bedazzled tank traps for protection, modular bridges for creating hills and ramps, blown out shell craters for infantry to take cover in, armored carrier buses for transporting weapons and ammunition to and from the front lines, and pallets for all the supplies a growing campaign needs. In addition to the STLs, we have a selection of these pieces available physically from EonsOfBattle.com printed for you. This terrain pack perfectly complements the fall buildings and the fall guns and is the perfect way to add those finishing touches and make a battlefield look real. Big fun week of Warhammer 40,000. I have been hard at work chipping away at my Dark Eldar. You may have seen this week that I am working on some Forge Roll Tantaluses, and they're looking pretty darn spicy. I have to get back to work on them. Thanks for watching.